Me versus the King of Curses, huh? Let me cook. What's up, guys? Welcome to here, and here we are to do a girthy little spoiler discussion for chapter 254 of Jujutsu Kaisen, which is known as The Decisive Battle in the Uninhabited Demon-Infested Shinjuku Part 26? Question mark, exclamation point? I don't remember. But with that being the case, ladies and gentlemen, we got a hefty, defty chunk to talk about, specifically in regards to whether or not this chapter means anything, whether it shifts Kusakabe higher, whether it does anything for certain domain users, whether it doesn't do anything for certain domain users, and what it does for, of course, Kusakabe himself. So since we've got a hefty, defty chunk to talk about, let's not waste any more time and let's hop right into it. Editing me, are you ready? 3, 2, 1, go. What's up, guys? That guy with a pencil here. Fun fact, I do happen to have it on me and keep it on me at all times. And another fun fact, Atsuya Kusakabe also tends to have it on him and keep it on him at all times as he immediately enters the stance of simple domain. And we see, and this is going to be important, ladies and gentlemen, we need to open up the discourse with something very, very clear. Let me be clear. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to look me dead in my eyes. Do you see my balls? Do you see my look me dead in them? All right? And then look at Sukuna's face. Look at his face. All right? Now, I know. He just landed a black flash. He is off. That curse is on right now. Well, I want you to look at his face. Look at his face. And remember how unserious this man is. And remember what he views Kusakabe as. Alright? So when Kusakabe starts to do certain things in this chapter, I need you to keep this in mind. Okay? We're going to be on the same frame. Sukuna is not very serious right now. Alright? Remember, Yuta Okotsu, Higuruma Hiromi, and even Kashimo Hajime were all considered appetizers to Maki. Someone who Sukuna was actually interested in. I repeat, Higuruma Hiromi, the prodigy like no one we've ever seen before. Yuta Okotsu, another prodigy we've never seen like anyone before. And Kashimo Hajime, the strongest of an entire era, quote unquote. Maybe my goat Ryu better. But they were all appetizers. If they were appetizers, what is Kusakabe, everybody? Just put this in mind. So when I start saying things, we aren't going insane. Alright? So primarily, we see Kusakabe enter the simple domain stance. And notably, he does this relatively close to Sukuna. Like, he kind of just squats right in his face. And he's like, "Try me, boss man." And we see that Sukuna's actually a bit genuinely confused. He's like, weren't you the... Where'd the ratio cleaver go? No, I know he's not asking that. But, yeah. This is the last line of defense. And I think Sukuna himself is even like, Did I burn through everything? Where's the immortal guy? Like, no. And the funny thing is, he actually wouldn't have any context for Hikari, I don't think. Because he never got, like, the only experience he had with Hikari was a very limited battle with him against Yuji, and nothing else. Yeah, so he probably wouldn't even know about Hikari. Maybe Kenny told him about him, and has some data given to him, but I think Sukuna's genuinely regretting, like, oh, I already burned through all the good ones. Now all I have left is this. You know, Sukuna, this is why our roommate said to play with your food a little bit more before you got bored. Well, so we see that, seemingly enough, Kusakabe is ready to take advantage of the fact that, well, he's Kusakabe. What is the King of Curses exactly going to do to him? In terms of, like, going absolutely insane. Of course, there's the 50-50 shot that Sukuna was just so disinterested in Kusakabe that he just immediately world slashed him. There was that chance. Don't get me wrong. And especially considering, you got to put yourself in Sukuna's shoes. Everyone's knocked. Everyone valid is knocked. Like, the Cursed Child in half. And just based on what happened to Satoru Gojo, even with the Cursed Child getting... and scooped up by Rika and getting carried up out of here by the Queen, you know, he was still in half, just like Satoru Gojo. And that man didn't get back up yet. Maki Zenin, currentently buried somewhere in a building. Sure, I'm going to give her all the credit in the world for blocking the punch, but, like, that arm, probably barely arming right now. So she's going to need at least a couple minutes to been that back into shape. Yuji Todori is still, I get, you know, the crazy thing is, I'm not saying Yuji should be up by this point, but like, with Choso being there to guide him, whether you think that's a real Choso or a spiritual Choso, it is kind of crazy that he just doesn't appear. Like, the person who appears at the end of this chapter appears before Yuji appears, which is crazy to think. Yuji, what kind of deep, complex damage did bro really do to you? But the other major point is that Akari's still fighting her. Ooh, like, here's the thing. I've been an Urume Glazer for a while now. I've even, typically, I can't say it necessarily a while. 215? Yeah, I think 215 is when I was like, whoa, maybe sit up in my chair, my Urume glazing chair. So like, don't get me wrong, I've invested stocks in Urume. I'm on the committee. I'm definitely a major shareholder. But like, gosh darn, what is taking? And I get it. Technically, in real world time, months have gone on since that battle started. But in their time, it may have been no more than 10 minutes. Like, thinking about it at the speed that JJK characters fight at, even though it's not one of the faster verses, it's fast enough that it's entirely likely that Hakari versus Urume has been taking place over the course of like 10 minutes. So maybe the battle isn't supposed to end that quickly. But darn, man. The fact that Kusakabe is not just the only one left, but he's the only one left at the end of this chapter, and then someone else needs to come in, step in, and save somebody else. Golly gee whiz. However, once again, locking back into the chapter itself, agendas and questionable allegations for someone who's supposedly on the level of Yuta Okotsu. That aside, Kusakabe locks in. And we see that Sukuna's like, you know what? You know, if I've got nothing else, alright? You know what? I'll take it. I'll take it. Fine. Another sorcerer. You know, Kenjaku said you had a little know-how. Let's see how know-how you got. And we see Sukuna. Once again, it's kind of insane to me. Like, what does it mean? What is the hand sign for dismantle? That's a genuine question for me at this point. Because I swear we don't know. It's like, we've had so many different ones, too. Like, we know I think there are different styles. There are different hand signs he does for different types. Like, we know for a strong or not strong, just a regular single dismantle, he does this. But then we've seen him do this for something like World Slash against Yuta. He specifically tilts his hand like this. Then when he does the dismantle nets, he hits something like this, which I'm still not sure entirely how it works. Maybe it's just like the splaying of the fingers that all come out at different angles. And then, like, we'll see him do something very different in this chapter as well. Which makes me wonder if there even is a point. Like, does he even need to aim? But we see that Kusakabe, once again, starts to abuse domain hacks. I assume most people aren't going to start glazing Kusakabe over this, but I don't know. The amount of Kusakabe slobber, glaze that I was seeing in the past 2 weeks leading up to this, I'm not sure if that's the fading remnants of Lobotomy Kaisen and or people actually being serious. But notably, Kusakabe reacts to these slashes with simple domain and knocks them away, which is still very, very impressive, especially if you've come to the common community consensus that it seems like it's appeared in my comment section. I'm not sure how many other places it has appeared, but it seems like the community consensus is that no matter the output, no matter Sukuna's mentality, no matter anything like that, dismantle speeds are uniform, meaning that the casual dismantle that a full power, completely fresh Meguna threw out at the start of the Gojo fight, and these dismantles right here are the same speed. Will they have the same level of potency? Probably not. But in terms of speed, that really goes to show that Simple Domain and its battle sword drawing style is still really, really good. Of course, it's like a anti-sure hit. Of course, it should be able to react to things that are not sure hits. But still, the fact that Kusakabe is able to react to and block these slashes, and his blade doesn't break, very, very impressive. Remember, these slashes are, like, monstrous. Extremely powerful. And Kusakabe is countering them with his own curse energy that he's imbued into his own sword. So the fact that his sword doesn't shatter? real good stuff. Real good stuff. If I do got to say so myself. That's very, very impressive. That in of itself is a feat for Kusakabe. The ability to knock away dismantles. Of course, we run into the fugue state issue that we've kind of been in for a while now. It's basically impossible to determine how powerful these slashes should be, because notably the only thing the consensus community seem to agree on is that the speed is uniform. We all seem to agree that the output fluctuates randomly based on Sukuna's mood, I guess. So, like, the only things we know should be max power, full output. This is top of the line juice here in terms of slashing damage. It's World Slash. That seems to be the only thing. But even then, because of Kashimo and Gojo, two characters who we don't get to see Gojo's World Slash, and Kashimo's World Slash appears not to travel. We don't even know about World Slash, typically, in terms of it being uniform. But that's the thing. That's the only one we know is like, okay, that should be a full power absolute dismantle. So regardless, I'm going to give Kusakabe his street cred. Once again, you're going to find me being an anti-Kusakabe glazer. Kusakabe unglazer? That sounds strange. I don't like the sound of that. That just sounds weird. But I guess it's my role to play, so I'll play it well. Yeah, I'll be a Kusakabe unglazer this chapter, but I will give him street cred for being able to do anything to dismantles. And remember, this is already a direct improvement on what he was doing for Higuruma. Because remember, he got slashed when Higuruma was Higurumaing everywhere. Now, of course, that was a stronger Sukuna that was Higuruma, well, that was sending slashes out. But at the same time, there, he reacted to protected Higuruma with Symbol Domain, which is something you're not really supposed to be able to do, as he himself mentions this chapter, apparently, where he's like, Symbol Domain really ain't meant to block anything but sure hits, but we can use it in this way using his mastery. So it still is very impressive. Once again, especially if all dismantle speeds are uniform, him reacting as well as he does without breaking his blade, very, very impressive. This kind of makes me wonder, why didn't he teach? Well, I mean, I guess he only had a month. That's the thing. But like, as we'll see, someone like Yuji could have really benefited from this. Think of every single scenario Yuji was in, where he was 1v1ing Sukuna. If Kusakabe had given up a little bit of that salt, well, we'll get to it. There's a big point where Yuji could have actually done some real numbers to Sukuna if Kusakabe had taught him the right thing. But of course, Yuji had other important things to learn, so I'm not going to blame Kusakabe for not spreading the sauce, because they had super limited time to spread sauce. So we see that Kusakabe knocks all the blades away. And Sukuna even finds himself a little bit like, well, golly gee willikers. You know, I'll be real, fella. Didn't think you're going to be able to do that, my G. All right. Money on your name. And I love how Kusakabe immediately just, gotta stay locked in. Like, notably, Sukuna essentially is testing him. He is just toying around. He's like, okay, you did that for real. I'll put respect on your name. But what about this many? And he just sends them out again. Notably, though, once again, Kusakabe, using Simple Domain, is able to react. Now, admittedly, these dismantles do seem a bit smaller than some of the full-scale ones. But once again, it's just hard to tell with some of them. So, like, what do we use to determine the output of these slashes? Because presumably, every single slash Sukuna throws out should be stronger than the ones he was using against Maki, right? Because Maki was against a weaker Sukuna than this one, because that was a pre-Black Flash Sukuna. We know Black Flash puts you in the zone and stuff like that. But at the same time, with how tiny the reflections seem to be off of Kusakabe's blade, it looks like he's sending out tiny dismantles. Which, I'm not sure if that affects their output. Once again, it's the nightmare of current JJK, and especially Sukuna, where it's weirdly impossible to tell what anything means in regards to other characters, kind of. Because, like, at times, I'd like to say, wow, Sukuna is just really, really weak right now. Then he'll do things like Perception Blitzing Maki, who's able to read his world slashes. Something that characters like Yuta maybe not have been able to do. Okay, I say may not have been, he was literally cut in half. But, like, still, that happened. In his weakest state, he can Perception Blitz our fastest character. Okay. Like I'm not sure what this is supposed to mean. And for the output sense, I don't know. Am I supposed to find this impressive because Kusakabe is blocking even more slashes that Sukuna sends out at him? Or am I supposed to be like, wow, these slashes seem really tiny? And that's kind of sad that Kusakabe is struggling like this. He's looking a little bit spooked right here. I don't know. I'm going to give Kusakabe credit, though. I'm going to give him credit. I'm going to give Suma Domain credit, too. Because we see he blocks instinctively. And notably, Sukuna reveals that, yeah, BT dubs, fella. Hold on, let me see. Sukuna reveals that, hey, by the way, I've definitely been messing with y'all and telegraphing every single one of my attacks. I don't actually have to point, which is something that has been hinted at. It's been hinted at for a while now. It's like, notably, I think the most blatant hints were actually in 253, but this is just hard confirming it. Sukuna does not need to aim. Every single time he points, he's essentially telegraphing for free. He's letting you know that a dismantle's coming your direction. He doesn't have to do that. Which, notably, I'm not sure if he can do this for World Slash. But if he ever develops the ability to, we're gonna have to. That's the thing, though. Infinity is way too good cross-verse. This is the thing, right? Because, at least in my opinion, JJK has always been a verse that's kind of like localized unto itself, because JJK has a lot of weird properties and weird abilities, meaning the verse typically doesn't do too well in cross-verse scenarios unless going up against extremely weak verses. Like, obviously, you drop Sukuna in the Demon Slayer and he sneezes on everybody. Well, of course, Sukuna's kind of high. You drop, like, Yuta, or even Kurni Todori, or Hakari in Jackpot, like in Demon Slayer, or Attack on Titan. Well, maybe not Attack on Titan. I'm not. Actually, that may be fun. Yuta versus the Rumbling, that could be fun. But, like, you drop them in there, and they'll probably do fine, because those verses are relatively weak. But, like, you start to put them against any of the more prominent verses, and, like, unless it's Gojo, they ain't really doing anything. But if Sukuna gets the passive ability to send out slashes that delete space, oh, he gonna be doing something. He gonna be doing numbers. So that's devious. The fact that Sukuna can release slashes from anywhere also does kind of rectify a question that a lot of people are having last chapter. There's people wondering, is he just no-selling Soul Split with his bare arms? Notably, I thought that at first too, but I remember he can just release them from anywhere. That the main implication I remember this from is the anime, where he, and this is recent in the anime too, where he like bisects, I think it's Mimiko, without removing his hands from his pockets. He just like lets off a wave of dismantles. And then in the Jogo fight in the anime extension, he also like infiniflexes super duper hard on like a building and a whole pool of lava. So like this is a thing that Sukuna can just do, I guess. I can't knock his hustle, but I am more terrified. But with that being the case, that explains him blocking and redirecting perfectly. If you thought it wasn't dismantles coming out, because I saw people being like, well, he can't use dismantle from anywhere but his hands. He very clearly can use dismantle from anywhere he wants. It's basically just, I don't want to just call it an application of Infinity, but kind of it is, where he can just release it from anywhere, which explains that he was blocking Maki's attacks. However, this does mean, once again, he's pretty much massively holding back. Like, notably, even on, like, Maki, he never does this. He never just flexes in the general area and lets dismantles fly out. Against Yuta, he doesn't do that. Against Rika, he doesn't do that. Against Itadori, he doesn't do that. Against Higuruma, he doesn't do that. He always aims. He's very particular about aiming. So, he kind of just flexes on Kusakabe here. And that does imply that everyone, the only characters who would probably not change too much are Yuta and Itadori probably wouldn't change all too much unless he started like infinite spamming slashes and he just kept releasing them and they kept taking damage. Someone like Maki would probably be able to precog a lot of it, but any attack or offensive capability she would have had would have been neutered even more than what little she did in 253, because she would have to be consistently dodging slashes and not be able to put on pressure at all. But it's a nice little confirmation buff. A nice little solid confirmation buff for Sukuna. It's been hinted at, I said this before and I'll say it again, it's been hinted at for a minute now that this is something that Sukuna could do. But having it hardly to text is nice. I mean, it's not nice for our cast, obviously, because it means that Sukuna could at any moment, if they're in close range or even mid-range, like he is with Kusakabe right now, they could just immediately get slashed. But nice calm little buff for Sukuna. Nice calm little buff. We like that. We'll take a little buff here or there. Make him stronger. Just make him stronger. You know, I'm kind of at a loss at this point. Give him his domain back. Do it. Do it. Give him Malevolent Shrine. In fact, give him Malevolent Shrine and fuse it with Chimera Shadow Garden. Let it be Malevolent Chimera Shadow Garden Shrine. Like, let's go. Let's have fun. All right, gosh darn it. Who even wants to win? Nah, not against my glorious cursed king. But with it being the case, we see Kusakabe realize, ah, shoot, wait a minute, this guy, he's built different. Hold on a second. If he's doing this now, if he's really getting fancy. But before we get consider the implications of Kusakabe preparing for Sukuna getting fancy, we begin to glaze. And speaking of glaze, I need to take a sip. And that's why having a mic is fantastic. You're recording again, right? Gosh darn, I don't want to do the same thing I did in that reaction video. Alright, good. But we are going back to glazing Kusakabe Atsuya. And they're talking more and more about why Kusakabe is the strongest. Notably, I do like all the different scenarios that we're getting here of the different cast and crew. Like, before it was kind of just them in random scenarios, very, very vague on where they were. But now we have AYYYY and Mei, I guess, like, on a camping trip somewhere? Nanami getting out of a chauffeured car. I'm not sure if it's meant to be by... He paid for it himself. It's a very nice looking car. But it may be due to society itself. And they're talking further and further about Kusakabe and his power and his strength and how it's unique to a lot of other individuals. Especially considering he's one who doesn't have a curse technique. And even Gojo, while he's buying sweets, is like, yeah, I mean, he's not me. And he's not one of the big three families. Like, he's a low key kind of him. Low key kids look kind of him. I can very respect on his name. You know what I'm talking about? And it's nice. Once again, it's kind of like, and it's good for Kusakabe's scaling, right? Because it just reinforces the meta that he's the strongest grade 1. But like, what in this economy? I know this sounds so great, but like in this economy, what does being the strongest grade 1 even get you? Does it even get you in the top 20 anymore? I don't think so. I think I did this last, like, a whole list of characters who should be stronger than Kusakabe. Because let's again, grade 1, it's not meta anymore. Like, notably, in the early game, in the early Jujutsu Kaisen, you could argue grade 1 wasn't even meta then. Like, I mean, I guess kind of. But then you have characters like Jogo, who entirely, like, eclipse the grade 1 meta. Characters like Domain Dagon, who eclipse the grade 1 meta. Top grade 1, too. Big 3 family. Second fastest sorcerer grade 1 meta. Dagon ended up completely eclipsing. And he's arguably the weakest disaster curse. So again, all 4 disaster curses above the grade 1 meta. You have a whole bunch of Culling Games players. Not a whole bunch, but a decent chunk of Culling Games players above the grade 1 meta. You have I guess it's mainly just Kuro of, like, random special grade curses that are above grade 1 level, just based on Kuro's interactions with Yuta, a special grade. You got Riga, you got the 4 special grades, you got Sukuna, you got the current crew of your Maki, you got your Toji, you got Hikari. Like, I don't know, grade 1? It's a little bit too late to be glazing. Like, I get retroactive glazing. You always gotta, if you gotta fit the glaze in somewhere, you gotta fit it in somewhere. But, like, logistically speaking, it's nice that Kusakabe's getting glazed. But at the same time, it's like, what that mean, though? In the general scheme of things, in the massive schema, in the way that this world continues to function, what does any of this mean, though? He's not suddenly top 20. He ain't. He's not beating my GOAT Ryu, not beating my GOAT Uro, not beating my GOAT Kuro, not beating my GOAT Kashimo, not beating my GOAT Hikari, not beating my GOAT Yuta, not beating my GOAT Sukuna, not beating my GOAT Gojo, not beating my GOAT Itadori, not beating my GOAT, and I could just go on and on and on and on. So, like, I don't know, I'm happy that they're glazing my boy. However, in this panel particularly, I believe they're glazing his complete mastery over his no technique having self. As we see, in order to basically avoid getting his cheeks absolutely atomized by a world slash from Sukuna, considering Sukuna was like, yeah, bruh, I don't like you so much, I ain't even gonna aim at you no more, buddy. I ain't gonna give you the same courtesy I gave the other ones. But, I got something for you. So, Sukuna, when he was, especially with his output getting back up, he was about to go, well, what is it, like, paired twin falling stars, separate, dismantle, blah, 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 blah. And he was about to spatial slash the soul out of Kusakabe. But Kusakabe, in order to, once again, abuse domain metrics and abuse the power system, which I do like. I think the best ways for characters to do things is power system abuse. Like, if your power system has a loophole in it, or like a specific mechanic in it that is spammable, spam that bad boy. And we see Kusakabe goes to spam that bad boy. Admittedly, this is honestly one of my favorite panels from the chapter. Just seeing the domain ominously spread. Even Sukuna's like, whoa, wait a minute, what are you doing? He even uncrosses his arms here as Kusakabe expands his symbol domain, which is very interesting. Notably, we've seen characters expand symbol domains before, but the only character to expand it to this kind of scale is Satoru Gojo. Now, of course, we haven't seen too many symbol domain users. I think we can count the amount of symbol domain users we've actually seen and interacted with on just barely 2 hands. It's Kusakabe himself, Miwa, Gojo, Yuki, Todo, and I think I'm missing one more. Obviously, if you include the Hollow Wicked Basket users, that number widens a bit, but that is clearly a completely different technique and probably wouldn't function the same way symbol domain does. So, interesting. His symbol domain is now on the scale of Satoru Gojo's. Now, of course, it isn't actually Satoru Gojo's strength or output level, but it still is impressive that Kusakabe has such an intense mastery over the new Shadow style that he's able to essentially expand his range, upwards of like 5 times to reach Sukuna here and fully entrap him. And Sukuna himself is even shocked. Once again, he doesn't get 1, but 2 exclamation points. And you know you're doing good when you get 2 exclamation points out of Sukuna. And we see that Kusakabe abuses the basic metric of symbol domains. Because remember, at the end of the day, while a domain may be simple, it is always a domain. And the instant Sukuna crosses into that divine territory, even Sukuna's like, he ain't gonna do what I think he gonna do, is he? Nah, there ain't no way he built like that for real. We see Mei throws on a bit more glaze with her teddy bear coffee cup, as Kusakabe has now utilized the fact that Sukuna is in his range and immediately lunges in. And he starts doing numbers. Look at that man. Look at it. I want you to look at it. Golly. He starts hitting Sukuna with slash, after slash, after slash, after slash, after slash. Endless slashes. Remember, a sure hit of a symbol domain is still a sure hit. So, since the property of the domain is attack anything in range of the domain, that I guess has curse energy in this case, he attacks, and he starts slashing up Sukuna. Now, this... we go down 2 different paths, ladies and gentlemen. We go down the path of truth and the path of glaze. First, we shall walk down the path of truth before I offer a world of glaze. So, clearly, if you're me and you see these spurts of black ink, your brain's automatically gonna leap to one thing. And especially if you see all that splatter coming off, even off of Kusakabe's blade. If you're looking at it all nice and juicy, look at the splatter. Look at the juice coming off that bad boy. And of course, look at the juice coming off Sukuna himself. So, this all looks real. In fact, we aren't even gonna go down the path of truth at first. We're gonna go down the path of glaze. Kusakabe Atsuya is able to directly damage Ryomen Sukuna cleanly. Simply look at the numbers. Oh, look at my boy. Do you feel my delay odds just ripping off me? Like Sukuna dismantles. Look at this. He does more damage than Maki did after that initial previous heart stab. He does more damage than Yuji did, at least in terms of physical damage. The only person who comes close to this level of damage, and by close I mean literally exceeds it in the case of the actual damage they did, is Yuta Okotsu himself. So naturally, by doing this much damage to Sukuna, even under the pretenses of a sure hit, Kusakabe, while he may have some sort of minor amp, doesn't mean that he massively gets a buff here. He ends up doing more damage to true form Sukuna than Hikanomi Hiromi, than Kashimo Hajime, than Maki Zenin, than any of these characters. So Kusakabe simply must be top 5, only inferior to the 3 strongest characters in the series, Yuta Okotsu, Satoru Gojo, and Ryomen Sukuna. Bada bing, bada boom, glaze and effect. Golly, look at my boy, look at my goat. He'd one-tap anybody else with this. The only characters he couldn't are characters even bulkier than Sukuna, aka like no one. That's the path of glaze. That's the path we could walk down. That's the path that is open to us by this panel and this panel alone. Now, hopefully I don't need to explain to you why I won't. Well, at least I wouldn't rock with that. I wouldn't rock with it. I would not like that. I would not like if that were the case. Now, of course, y'all are gonna do the natural accusation thing. You're gonna be like, "Oh, Pencil, I know exactly why you wouldn't like that, because it would make your goat Maki's in and look bad." And to that I say, you're right. But in this case, I'm also aligning with the Kanshimo Glazers, or the Kanshimo Creamers, the Jaku Jackers, and shockingly enough, the Yuji Itadori Yuckers, because it just wouldn't. Here's the thing: it wouldn't make sense. All right, I know. I just wouldn't. I don't like it. I don't like it. And here's the thing: this is gonna be one of the rare times where, despite it explicitly looking like juice, like that wonderful sauce that you put before a Mary if you really want something real quick, like, I just don't think anything actually ends up happening here, because let's open up our eyes to the path of truth, aka the path of anti-glaze, aka hopefully the path of logic, but it's hard to tell. You know, once again, I'm not the sharpest spoon in the kitchen shed, so feel free to correct me. Once again, I'm recording this early enough that I actually haven't. Whoa. Jeez, body, what are you doing? But I'm recording this early enough that I actually have no influenced opinions. Like, at the time I'm recording, not even the quick spoiler discussion is up yet. So I have no idea what the common community consensus is on this yet. I haven't even looked at any comments. I just immediately went, grabbed these, and I'm currently talking about them. But I want you to take a look. Sukuna gets slashes everywhere. But pay attention to the slash that happens here, and seemingly possibly on his face. I want you to look at all these slashes. Look at all the slashes all over his body. Take note of these. And remember to look out for the steam, the trademark sign of reverse curse technique. Alright. So we're going to take a look in a book, Reading Rainbow. First things first. Well, I mean, we'll talk about this in a second, but look at Sukuna. Where are the slashes at, bro? Where are the numbers? Where are the numbers that Kusakabe was supposedly doing this, man? How did they immediately vanish? What happened to them? Like, genuinely, where did they go? Where did all those numbers go? Huh? Where are they at? Seemingly nowhere. Like, notably, these look like tattoos. This looks like a tattoo. This looks like tattoos. And not a single slash is on them. Not anywhere on his shoulders or anything like that. And once again, there's no RCT steam. So, what? Where's the damage? And then, of course, you know, you may be wondering, I'll get to this in a second, because this is what could have been useful for Itadori. But once again, we'll come back to that. Look at Sukuna again here. Despite supposedly being riddled with countless slashes, yeah, there's not a lick of damage on him. Anywhere. Like, literally anywhere. There's not even the slightest bit of damage on him. And this trend just continues. Well, once again, I'm going to address all that, but look, once again, where's all the slash damage? It's just nowhere there. And even look at here, once again, no slash damage, and once again, no steam or anything. Now, you could argue that going back here, these are just very, very shallow cuts. Like, to the point where Sukuna wouldn't even, like, they would heal basically automatically, especially off the Black Flash, and since Sukuna's output is restoring, the RCT steam wouldn't be as evident. But, I don't know. Gege's been very particular with Sukuna's level of RCT speed. And very particular with the amount of damage that Sukuna has taken. And even if just a couple of the slash marks that supposedly existed that did real damage were still there, I think we'd see a couple of them. Or we'd see them close. Or we'd see something. But since we see legit nothing, nada, zilch, zero, I'm more so inclined to believe that Gege just ended up using these as slash indicators as where Sukuna got slash, but I don't think they actually did any damage. And I think that is generally more consistent with the narrative we've seen so far. Especially considering what happens on the very next page, where Nanami, after glazing Kusakabe a little bit more, we see that Kusakabe's sword breaks. Like, he literally breaks it on Sukuna. And notably, this isn't a first-time thing. We've seen characters when they're swinging on people drastically out of their weight class, break their blades before. Remember Nanami himself? Well, admittedly, Haruta didn't break his blade, but it didn't do any damage, because the reinforcement on Nanami was so high relative to Haruta's attacking potency that it basically ended up like a Kenpachi and Ichigo situation in Pack and Soul Society, where the blade kind of just... And Kenpachi and Nanami were both looking at Ichigo / Haruta like... because it didn't do anything. I think a similar case happened here. Of course, this one is a bit harder to go against, but I'm gonna, for the sake of my sanity, for the sake of my legit sanity, this is all for me. Once again, if you want to glaze Kusakabe off of this, feel free to. I mean, you could definitely, with the sure hit Sukuna damage wombo combo, if you think he was able to do damage to Sukuna here, even if it was skin deep, Sukuna is very easily the bulkiest character in the entire series. The only exception to that may be Ryu, now with Sukuna's glaze towards him. But even then, Ryu was able to be adjusted and cleaved up. So, like, maybe it's either him or Ryu. Regardless, they both clear Yuta. So, like, and Yuta's massively bulkier than everybody else. So, if you think Kusakabe did numbers here and damage, then he'd be able to do numbers and damage to literally anybody. He'd be able to slice and dice a majority of the verse. But if you think that's ludicrous, and you don't think that's the case, in combination with the lack of visible damage on Sukuna after this, then you must twin for real. And we're going to chalk this up to, it looks cool, didn't actually do anything though. And we see, once again, since Kusakabe shattered his blade on Sukuna's body, he's forced to switch up tactics, essentially. He throws off his coat and ends up blinding Sukuna, if only temporarily. Of course, Sukuna does actually have, like, precog of his own. Like, we see him use this in the Gojo fight, so clearly this distraction doesn't mean too much, but he does use it to switch fighting styles entirely. And he goes in to start straight boxing with Ryomen Sukuna. Notably, I believe he is still using Symbol Domain. Sukuna technically is still within the range of his domain, even if it is a simple one, meaning he's essentially auto-attacking Sukuna. And we get this really, I'll admit, this is a really cool panel of Kusakabe and Sukuna just, like, actually exchanging hands. But, I mentioned earlier, someone would have benefited from this. I get why, because of the limited time frame. But Kusakabe, if this is something you could do with Symbol Domain, Planner Man, why didn't you teach this to Itadori? Because remember, Kusakabe's hits are doing nothing. In fact, he's probably breaking his fingers against Sukuna's immaculate marbled flesh. Sorry, a little bit of the Sukuna glazer came out of me. But, like, with that being the case, dude, this, you know how useful this would have been? To anyone else who could have used Simple Domain? Like, especially considering it's revealed that you could hypothetically stack anti-domain techniques or anti-techniques inside of domain expansions. You know how crazy Yuta would have been if he had his pseudo sure hit on top of his actual sure hit? Like, he had Symbol Domain on top of his domain? The main one's Yuji, though, because this is very specifically showing that you can use Symbol Domain to throw hands with the automatic response attack. So do you know how quickly Sukuna's soul could have been worn down, Kusakabe, if you had taught Yuji this? Like, I get it, you were definitely teaching him something else with that soul swapping ability that has yet to come to bear yet. We'll see that eventually, soon enough, presumably. But, like, dude, the numbers that Yuji could have racked up. Because remember, he was struggling to hit Sukuna, because every time he did, Sukuna would immediately try to counter. But with Symbol Domain, not only would Yuji be able to auto-react and defend from all of Sukuna's slashes, except for, like, World Slash, obviously, but he'd also be able to attack automatically. Dude, like, I get it. This is a cool moment for Kusakabe, and I'm happy that the character gets a cool moment like this. Especially considering I was in the camp that Kusakabe was just going to get one tapped, and this wasn't going to be that complicated. So, it has turned out to be much more complicated than I ended up thinking it was going to be. But at the same time, it's like, dog, Bucko, why didn't you teach more people? And even if not more people, just Yuji. Like, I get not teaching it to Yuta. He has his own domain expansion. Yuta may find it redundant, and Yuta obviously had other things to train with. I get Kashima wouldn't want to learn something like this. He'd be like, dude, what the heck? I have Hollow Wicker Mask. I don't need this. You dumb stupid head. In fact, I'm older than you. Puh! And then he'd walk away. Higuruma, once again, I think Higuruma... Actually, why didn't Higuruma learn it? Because, like, I don't think Symbol Domain does. Oh, yo, Kusakabe, you may have actually fumbled. If Higuruma learned this and had like Bato's sword drawing was Symbol Domain, as the moment he got the Executioner's Blade, he may have actually been able to attack Sukuna with. Kusakabe, you may have actually fumbled, bro. Because, like, can you imagine? Maybe Sukuna would be able to block it still using the same thing he did to block Soul Split, but then he'd at least be forced to do that. Higuruma had to go in blind, not with any auto sure hit. So Kusakabe could have taught that to Higuruma, who probably would have actually been willing to listen and learn from Kusakabe, and with his prodigy status would have picked it up very, very quickly. Yuji could have definitely benefited from this in terms of weakening down Sukuna's soul. Yuta may have been able to benefit from this. Hakari, maybe. But, darn, man. There's so many characters that could have benefited from an attacking style like this that it's kind of a shame it gets wasted. I don't want to say wasted, because Kusakabe's a cool character. I was admittedly very harsh in my Kusakabe video. But, like, he's a cool character, dog, but so many other people could do better than this. And especially, like, dude, where is the Ratio Cleaver, actually? Like, why aren't you using that? Can you imagine if the Ratio Cleaver essentially got a pseudo-sure hit effect, so every single one of Kusakabe's strikes were critical hits, and not just, you know, these regular hits? Dude, he had been able to land a Black Flash that he got in his own. But we see that Kusakabe, he goes in. He's swinging. But, of course, now some of the slashes that Sukuna are sending out passively are starting to breach him. And even note, Sukuna's playing patty cake. He's not just standing there and taking it. He's like, I see you. I see you. You probably should have taught this to the kid or the judge or somebody with actual ability to do something to me. Because right now, you kind of trash, bucko. You're trash, geek. But we see that Kusakabe says, it doesn't matter if I'm trash. I'm locked in. And notably, they end up glazing Kusakabe for not just being the mightiest, but also the kindest of all grade 1 sorcerers. That's what truly makes him the strongest. His heart. Which is nice. Basically, they're saying, when all the chips are down, when you have nothing left on the table, when you truly need someone to clutch up in a moment of doubt, there's no better man than Kusakabe Atsuya. The man who will fight back, even if fighting back is the most dangerous thing he can do in that scenario. And this is true. All cards are down. He himself was questioning, am I really about to fight Sukuna last chapter? But he sits down and he locks in. Maki's down. Yuta's down. Yuji's down. All these kids were already risking their lives and throwing themselves up against this impossible task, this impossible challenge. But with that being the case, he can't back down. He can't give up. He needs to lock in. He needs to show out in order to feel proper, feel adultish, feel like this was all worth it. And since he sort of was the mastermind of the entire taking down Sukuna plan, of course the leader needs to step up. And I think this panel of Kusakabe is very, very nice, where he ends up weaving a bunch of dismantles, taking off the black coat, using that as a screen to hide his blade as he begins to regenerate it. He backs off of Sukuna, re-engages, seemingly re-enters the Symbol Domain stance, and then does something quite unique. He burns his blade. I forget what the technique is actually supposed to be called. Once again, when translations come out, I'll have it. But he ends up reforging the end of his katana with cursed energy, which is very interesting, very interesting. This is not necessarily construction or anything like that, but it is a very advanced version of cursed energy manipulation. I'm not sure if he put a binding vow on it or anything like Biwa, but he does that, charges in, and goes for it. He wants Sukuna to spread it for him like a good little boy. Little man. That's not, there's no way, I can't say that. I can't, we're leaving it in. We're leaving it in. Pause, rewind the tape, delete that. But with that being the case, he goes in. He goes for Sukuna's gut. Heart. There's no way I can save him. But regardless, he dives in, ready to do some lethal damage to Sukuna. Actually be able to tag him and do something for real, for real. And Sukuna's like, this familiar, ain't it, huh? You know, they say it's not the size that counts, but it's the motion in the ocean. But luckily enough, according to Urume, I got both, bucko. But no, he doesn't say anything like that. He's like, you should have gone for the head, or leg, or arm, or something else, dog. Going for my heart, which is already damaged. How predictable, bucko. You gotta be able to do better than that. And That's unfortunate. Of course, this is even more disrespectful than what ended up happening to Kusakabe's student. Because, like, at least Kenny had to, like, you know, catch the blade with a whole hand. Dog. If someone caught my final ultimate attack like that. Like, the only more disrespectful thing that I've seen in terms of, like, stopping a sword strike is Aizen. Like, putting a finger on the blade and just... But that's it. In terms of sheer disrespect, this is definitely up there. But I do like that Sukuna smiles in his face. And even Kusakabe has one last clip back. But of course, he was destined for one thing, and one thing only. You and I both know what that thing is. If it happened to Gojo Satoru... I'm sorry. If it happened to Gojo Satoru, if it happened to Kashima Hajime, you know it had to happen to a certain someone else. Kusakabe Atsuya gets on the screen. They did my boy looking. Gege has to know it's a meme at this point. Like you gotta know. You've got to. There's no way this isn't intentional at this point. I'm sorry, I don't know why, but just the fact that he's with the cross on him, I'm like, darn, bro. Wow, the genuine disrespect is insane. We're really saying, clock out for me, G, and force him to clock. Golly, ladies and gentlemen, that one there is for the books. That one's for the books, ladies and gentlemen. Golly, that was different. Talk about doing numbers. And though supposedly maybe he's still alive, because notably it doesn't look like the slash went clean through his body. Sukuna didn't like cross world slash him. He just hit him with 2 dismantles, took him out of the fight, laid Kusakabe out. And we see AYYYY being like, oh gosh darn it, boss man, you can't be doing this, boss man. You're gonna worry my sister. How dare you? And what was that about calling Sukuna a little man? I'm not a little man. Let me avoid that joke. But we see a certain someone be like, oh, finally. I was getting real sick and tired of you showing up. Sukuna appears fresh out of nowhere. RKO. And he goes to teach AYYYY a lesson. Because he's been a naughty boy. Okay, let me stop. We're at the end of the chapter anyway. I'm running out of jokes anyway. But with that being the case, AYYYY is about to get he's about to get quad black flashed. Notably, interesting to note though, the battle's gone on. Sukuna's been doing his thing, but his arm still isn't healed. So his output, his RCT output, if it's higher, if it's back at all, it isn't enough to restore that arm, at least not quickly. But then again, maybe he still hasn't started the healing process again. Maybe he still has it turned off like he turned it off in 253. And we see AYYYY terrified and about to get absolutely... You know what's about to happen to AYYYY. I'm not going to say it, but you know what's about to happen to AYYYY. He's about to get made. And we see that one character comes out the woodworks to save AYYYY. Dog! Who had this on their bingo card? Who had Miguel coming back on their bingo card? I didn't. I've even as a person who's low-key been soft glazing Miguel, as someone who's like able to eat Satoru Gojo punches, adult Satoru Gojo punches in the time of Zero. I know Satoru Gojo was suppressed. I know he may have not been able to use Infinity to its fullest potency or Limitless to its fullest potency because of Black Robe. I know all that, but regardless, Miguel coming back and saving AYYYY. What? Who called this? People were hoping for Hikari. People were hoping me. I'm people. I was hoping for a Maki comeback, but no. Miguel, of all characters, comes out the woodwork and is like, hey, yo, it's good, dog. I ain't really getting paid for this, but, Bucko, you're going to destroy the entire world. You'll probably make your way to Africa eventually, and I can't let that rock. Miguel! Miguel versus Sukuna. Let him cook. And of course, one detail that I love, because of course he wouldn't, Sukuna has no idea who this guy is. Because Megumi wasn't at the Night Parade of 100 Demons, and Itadori was still living a regular high school life at the time. And that's the only time Miguel ever even showed up in Japan. He dipped out immediately after, took Yuta back to Africa and trained him up a little bit. So Miguel is a complete unknown. Of course, the thing is, Miguel never necessarily displayed any sort of technique of his own. He mainly relied on the Black Rope, and Satoru Gojo destroyed all the Black Rope, supposedly. But who knows? Maybe there was always more. And we're gonna have to see Miguel cook soon. Okay, of course not. But still, Miguel coming out like this is crazy. And note the fact, I'm not sure how he did it, because without the Black Robe, he shouldn't have any extension technique. He saved AYYYY from getting sliced up by Sukuna. Now, of course, the reason this would be impressive is because if you believe all dismantles are uniform, the fact that Sukuna was right on top of AYYYY, likely activating his technique as he spoke this, but Miguel was able to dash in, grab AYYYY, and get all the way up here, taking absolutely no damage from Sukuna's slashes. Miguel may be top 5 fastest in the verse. What are we doing, dog? Like, it's time for Miguel Glaze. You know what? I'm gonna make a Miguel hype video. I have to now. Golly gee willikers. Ladies and gentlemen, the chapter's gas. Of course, this is mainly a Kusakabe chapter, and I've grown a more fondness for Kusakabe now. And once again, if we go with my path of truth and not the path of glaze, I think this whole chapter is manageable and reasonable and does not shatter canon in any way, shape, and or form. Sukuna is still just as powerful as he was before, and Kusakabe is still as unpowerful as he was before. We get new applications for Symbol Domain, which does kind of raise the question why Kusakabe didn't teach others to do that, but gotta give Kusakabe his moment. Obviously, they're still gonna beat Sukuna somehow. So, I'm fine with Kusakabe. Getting Kusakabe. We don't see his body get recovered, or at least if it does, we don't see Miguel holding it, and obviously AYYYY's not holding Kusakabe's whole body. But I assume Kusakabe still managed to get out of here safely enough, which is good enough. Maybe he'll come back. Nice enough. And we're gonna get Miguel versus Sukuna. So overall, a very, very W chapter. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, please leave Return of the Mac. Return of the Mac. Mac as in M-A-C. You can throw a K on there if you're feeling fancy. But Return of the Mac in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. And make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon down below where you can support me for as low as $1 a month to get things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. You also have to become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Some of those perks will include the live reaction to this very chapter, along with ad-free variations of all my videos, and if you become a $25 patron or a $25 member, you can order whatever video you want. Now, I thank you guys so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This would happen to be that guy with the pencil, writing off. I'd like to give a thank you to our $3 members, Sukuna Plays, Greyhound, Akiz Void, Astro, Red Wolf 4765, Eternal Flame, and Teen Mitgao. And I'd like to give a thank you to our $5 patrons, Steron, Sean, Panda Goat, Midnight Lord 21, Metal Solid Crisis, Kevin, Ignil, and EHAC1. And I'd like to give a thank you to our $7 member, Autumn Mornings Lazo. And I'd like to give a big thank you to our $10 member, Jay Warrior. And I'd like to give another thank you to our $10 patrons, Joaquin and Idemokami. Along with another juicy thank you to our $25 patron, ChinaDoll09. And I'd like to give a final Giga Gargantuan thank you to our $25 patron, Calvin Elder.